now the podcast starts.
Hello, dear listener, and welcome back to the podcast on which we talk about horror. Sometimes we talk about other things, and sometimes we swear. Today, I have the great honour of being joined by the film critic, writer, and lecturer Ian Winterton. Hello, Ian.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm very well, and I'm delighted to be back doing this. It's been a little while.
It has.
And I am TD Velasquez, but as always, listener, and of course, Ian, you, like all my friends, can call me Dan. Apologies, listener, if there is some traffic noise bleeding into my microphone, because I am currently situated quite near a motorway, and I can't really do anything about that. But hopefully it won't dent your enjoyment too much. Today we're having a bit of a discussion about two relatively recent films, both directed by Zach Cregger. One of them is Barbarian from 2022, and Weapons is the other film from this year. Now, as we are doing this recording, we've only seen both of these films quite recently, but listener, you'll probably be hearing this later in the year. We're not scheduling this episode to go out until October, so both films, Barbarian's obviously a few years old. Weapons will have been out for a few months. So most of the episode is going to be a fully spoilerific discussion of both films, which are both kind of high concept horror films that are very difficult to discuss in a spoiler-free way. Nevertheless, we'll do that for a couple of minutes just at the very beginning. But if you haven't seen the films, I would urge you to go and watch them before you listen to this discussion. So, if you don't know what the two films are, Barbarian is a high-concept horror movie that is based on the idea of being double-booked into your Airbnb with a complete stranger, and then it develops in some unexpected directions. And Weapons equally takes a very high concept and then goes in strange directions with it. In that case, it's the concept of a classroom full of children disappearing from a small American town, and it has been described as an allegory for school shooting incidents, but it certainly develops in ways that you probably wouldn't expect.
This is a true story that happened in my town. So this one Wednesday is like a normal day for the whole school. But today was different. Every other class had all their kids. But Mrs. Gandy's room was totally empty. And you know why? Because the night before, at 2:17 in the morning, every kid woke up, got out of bed, walked downstairs, and into the dark. And they never came back.
I don't understand at all. Why just her classroom? Why only hers?
Where are our children?
We have a lot of emotional parents here. I think it's best if you keep some distance from this place.
Matthew, where are you? Where did you go?
This is where the story really starts.
So we're not going to spoil any of that, but I'll just mention that Ian and I think, had the opposite experiences with these movies. I saw Barbarian first, and I was not impressed with it. However, I then went to see Weapons, kind of carrying the lowered expectations from having not liked Barbarian, and I really enjoyed it. Ian, though, I think you had the opposite experience.
Almost opposite. Well, when we talk about weapons in more detail, I didn't hate Weapons. It bothered me, and things that we can talk about later. I didn't love it as much as other people have loved it. But Barbarian, as I've told you, I was like, I haven't got around to watching it yet. We're doing this podcast, and then I found myself with 2 hours free, so I've just finished watching it, and I did really like it. And again, until we get into the spoiler bit, you can't really discuss anything about it without spoiling it. So just to reiterate what you've just said, Dan, go away, stop listening to this podcast, and go and watch both these films, because they're both definitely worth watching.
Yeah, I think both films benefit from being viewed with as little foreknowledge as possible.
Although we can discuss that later. With Weapons especially, I didn't have very much foreknowledge, but I wonder if that... I did have foreknowledge of Barbarian, and I wonder we could discuss how much hype plays a part, and trailers and what you've heard from other people does inform how you experience films like this. But definitely go and see them all and be as spoiled as little as possible.
Yeah, I'd say the same. Yeah, I definitely recommend Weapons more, but having seen Weapons and liked it, I feel like maybe I misjudged Barbarian and I should watch it again, because it certainly was very impressive in certain ways, but I was overall disappointed with it. But that doesn't mean that other people will react the same way. So yes, I would encourage listeners to go and watch the movies with as little foreknowledge as possible. And having said that, let's get into the spoiler discussion of both movies then. We're going to focus, because we've got limited time, we're going to kind of focus on Weapons, but we're going to bring in Barbarian as is appropriate. So Weapons starts off with this incredibly high concept. I keep using that phrase of high concept horror, but I feel like Weapons is opening conceit, which is clear from the trailer of the film, is that a classroom full of children in a small American town just disappear overnight. They all inexplicably run away in the middle of the night, and nobody knows anything's happened until the next day. There is an empty classroom. There is only one child left, and the teacher, whom everybody kind of blames. And I think that when a film sets itself up with such a huge mystery, it is almost inevitably going to be disappointing in the way it resolves for that mystery. But I think Weapons kind of gets at least 80% towards a satisfying resolution, which we'll discuss.
Yeah, I'd probably agree, to be honest, Dan.
Okay.
So
well, let's talk about it then. What were your issues with it, or your feelings?
Well, I guess to be positive to start with, it's quite a thing for my disappointment to be rooted in the fact of how much I was enjoying the film. So for a start, that's a plus point, because I wouldn't be disappointed if the film was crap from the outset. I really, really liked it, nearly every element of it, and it is sticking the landing, isn't it, with these things? Such a good setup, and the setup. I think for some people maybe the setup didn't unravel, because they're just watching a film and it entertains. It's brilliantly made, brilliantly acted, looks brilliant, has and is chilling in many times. So for me, it unravelled as I was watching it, though, because I had an eye on the storyline and the narrative and the motives of the bad guys, and I could just go, that doesn't make sense, as I was watching it. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, if you're an evil witch, because we are in the spoiler section, if you're an evil witch that wants these kids to be weapons, which I think is what she wants, maybe don't steal everybody from the same class as your own son, except for your own grandson, except for your own grandson, and then make them all run towards your house.
Yeah.
Motive wise, that's really dumb, and it bothers me a lot. And but it's really, I'd love to sort of really dig in with the director, because I think there were ghosts of people messing around with this script. Maybe him, maybe studio notes, whatever. I think there's a darker thing that makes more sense, and somebody pulled away from it or something, because there's that bit where some of them are bullies.
Right. Mm.
And it's almost like, actually, was it supposed to be either her doing it for him or him doing it himself? And he hates his class.
Yeah.
And that's why, because there's just that little disconnect for me. Why would this witch do that? She wants all this power. She's going to get herself caught. Doesn't make sense. Bothers me a lot. And I would have been going through that script with notes and gone, no, make there be a reason why. You've got this brilliant hook, but is it going to be because of the kid? Is it because the kid hates everybody? You know, and I think there were ghosts of that in the script.
It does go in that direction because he chooses the kids, doesn't he? You know, I think she tells him to bring people, but she doesn't say who. He chooses them. I don't think the film even tells you why she wants them.
No, I mean, they're called weapons, and she basically sends people out as she needs them to kill people who've been marked for death, kind of thing.
But she doesn't use the kids to do that.
No.
You know, she makes other people into weapons, and Josh Brolin's character has a line where he says they've been, I don't know if he uses the word weaponized, but he says they're like...
I think he does.
He says they're like heat-seeking missiles. You set them on a target. And there are characters in the movie that she does that with, but specifically not the kids. You know, she doesn't... No,
yeah, that's another thing I was going to get onto that that doesn't quite add up for me as well, is why does she want all these kids? Is it because she's going to bathe in their blood and live forever? Or is she going to... You know, is she going to do a Hereditary and move into somebody's body? It's all a little bit fuzzy. And when you've got a mystery box like this, which is really amazingly well structured and all this thing, for it to actually add up to a not very much that doesn't quite make sense, you know, refrigerator moment I'm always going on about, that's a bit of a damp squib for me. For all the brilliant things about it, it ultimately... I mean, it ultimately means that's one I won't probably go back to, because it doesn't become more every time you rewatch it becomes less.
Yeah.
Because of these flaws, these holes I can see in it. I don't like films that just act on vibes. I never have done. I want them to act on vibes and be underpinned by an absolute brilliant narrative as well. Is that too much to ask?
Right. It shouldn't be, should it? It shouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, for me, that's what makes an amazing film. The vibes are brilliant, and you can just keep watching a good story, and it gets endlessly, you know, there's no holes in it. The holes don't get bigger. There are no holes in it. It just feels brilliant as you're going along. And, I think, like you said, I think I'd been got by the hype as well, which is the interesting thing to talk about both of these films, is the word of mouth was... I don't think I picked up on very much negative word of mouth. I picked up on this is a really good horror. And it was only afterwards I saw a review of a friend of mine who was like, that's exactly how I responded to it. He gave it 6 out of 10, and I'd probably give it 7 out of 10. Because there are lots of things, but it just bothered me that it doesn't make sense. And then it made me laugh, and I don't think the laughter felt like that's what they wanted us to do. And then other people say, no, obviously it was supposed to be funny. And I'm like, really? Because you said, I remember you saying you were primed for humour from the beginning.
Yeah, because a number of the reviews that I'd heard or read had compared it not to things like Hereditary, but to movies like Magnolia is an ensemble drama film that it's often compared to, and that movie is funny and horrifying in places and a whole mix of things. So I was kind of expecting that. I was also expecting a character focus that included some strange changes of tone. And also I saw it with quite a packed audience who were all laughing all the way through. I mean,
Yeah.
but sometimes it was laughter in the way that you hope for from a horror movie, where you've just been really scared, so there's a jump scare and you have a relieving laugh straight afterwards. And also there's things like the wonderful scene where Julia Garner, who plays the school teacher, is waiting in the car outside what we know later to be the witch's house, and she falls asleep in the car, and then we see the door open and someone emerge from the doorway and come towards the car, and it's just chilling the way it's filmed, the way that the person moves.
Oh yeah, brilliant.
And
it's brilliant.
then they pass out of shot, and the camera stays on the sleeping form of Julia Garner, and we hear the back door unlock. And when that happened, people in the audience went, "Ooh!" They were so into it.
Yeah. No. I mean, I was fully on board with the film during that bit. I was like, this is brilliant. It was really chilling. And I think Barbarian has just had a similar effect on me, except I think it doesn't have... I mean, we'll come on to Barbarian after we've heard what you think of Weapons, but for me, Barbarian is a simpler story and therefore doesn't collapse under its own weight, like I think Weapons does. But he's a brilliant director and a brilliant writer. I just didn't like Weapons as much as Barbarian. And if I'd watched them in order, then maybe I'd be even more disappointed by Weapons.
Right.
But what did you think of Weapons then? You did you absolutely love it, or did you?
I loved it I really enjoyed watching it, and I came out of it with lots of questions. I think there are plot holes. I think primarily as a kind of as a slightly autistic plot focused guy, the thing that niggled at me is that the methodology that the witch uses of taking a personal item from someone, whether it's a bit of their hair or a necklace or something, and then she uses that against them. Sometimes that seems to turn the person into a weapon, and sometimes it seems to be the targeting system. So when she cuts Julie Garner's hair in that car scene that we just discussed, she never weaponizes Julia Garner. She uses that bit of hair as to make Julia Garner the victim for other weaponized people later in the movie. Yeah. So it's like the film is never really clear which.
Yeah, well, that's another example of the fuzziness, which I do think pervades the film.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's so much to like, and a general audience who are on board for horror. I think, there's a reason. I think it's done quite well. But I think weirdly, being primed for humour, I think what I had seen and what I had heard was it was a chiller. And the trailer is all about how scary it is. So I was expecting a sort of Hereditary. And Hereditary made me laugh in the wrong way. I really don't like Hereditary.
Yeah.
After the first, it gets to the midpoint and loses me after being brilliant.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah.
But Midsommar by Ari Aster, I absolutely love, and I've watched about 10 times because it gets its tone right from the beginning and does everything right. And I wonder if maybe I do need to rewatch Weapons and see if now I know what's coming. If I go, oh yeah, the tone is all there and it's fine. You're supposed to piss yourself laughing. Because the bit for me that was really egregious was all the kids, when all the weapons are unleashed, they're screaming, going, ah! And it just reminded me of like a Monty Python movie or something. Somebody's going to be, topless women are going to run him off a cliff or something. But these kids are just screaming. And it didn't feel chilling to me. And the whole audience, I was with, it did lose them. They were laughing, but they were going, oh dear. Right. They weren't on board laughing. They were like, oh, for fuck's sake, what has happened to this film?
But the thing is,
that's really silly. And then everyone's just like laughing when she's getting torn apart. So it just, for me, I just kept going. If they just there's some brilliant like horror sensibilities. He's absolutely got it, and especially having just seen Barbarian, and I was a lot more tense watching that on my admittedly quite big television than I was watching Weapons in the cinema, which still got me, but not in the same kind of way. But Barbarian I found really tense and really didn't know what was going to happen next. But the horror sensibilities, the image of the slightly wrong way the kids hold their arms, it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
the way they run in silence is brilliant.
Yeah.
And creepy whether you see them on CCTV or like, you know, in the real world, so to speak. But then right at the end, it's like if they weren't screaming, maybe they'd be scary. But because they weren't, they were just smashing through windows and rampaging through people's living rooms, and it was just like, what the fuck is going on? It just. I mean, I was already starting to question things by that point, but that kind of was the bit that really lost me at the end, because it was. People say, of course, it was supposed to be funny, and I was like, was it?
Well, okay, I'll answer that now then. So let's start at the end and work backwards. So the sequence at the end is definitely filmed for comedy. You know, there's like static shots where you see an empty street and the witch runs across the end of the street, and then there's a pause, and then a load of children screaming follow. It's completely filmed for comedy. And then there'll be a bit where it's the same sort of setup, and there's a guy hosing his lawn, and she runs past screaming, and he looks up and he sees all the kids run past, and then he just goes back to hosing his lawn. It's completely and then
okay, it is filmed for comedy.
But if you go back through the film, a lot of it is like that, even though there are really chilling bits. I mean, from the very start of the film, the person who sets up the plot is an off-screen child character, the narrator of the child. The fact that, and that says to me, this is all a campfire tale. It's told by someone who's not even there. It's like it's something overheard at a distance. And then the first character that you follow in the story proper, you know, I know that the film is divided into segments and the viewpoint character changes quite a lot, but the first character who does that is the Julie Garner character, the teacher. And you've got a situation where a load of children have gone missing. You've got a town's worth of grieving parents and concerned individuals and investigating officers and so on. And instead of any of them, the character you follow is the teacher of the class, who does obviously love the kids and is concerned about them, but not as much as she loves a drink. And her main emotion is just irritation because she's been blamed for something that was not her fault. And that is the tone of the start of the movie, is that sense of just, oh God. And you know, she's Benedict Wong plays the school principal, and he's trying to protect her, but she's a problem for him as much as anything, you know. And then you go on to the Josh Brolin character, who is a grieving parent, but you know, he's not actually given a great deal of depth. We follow his investigation. He's got a kind of conspiracy theory mindset about it. He's investigating by looking at CCTV footage and putting things together. But for instance, he's a single parent. We never know where the mum is or why she's not there. We never really know what his relationship with his child was really like. We just know that he misses his child and he wants to solve that mystery. So he's a kind of good old-fashioned Hollywood sort of blank slate leading man in a way. You know, it's not about how he feels, it's about what he does. That's what moves the movie forward. And then you've got the third viewpoint character who comes along, is the Alden Ehrenreich cop character, who's basically inept. He's been compared to the John C. Reilly is it John C. Reilly character from Magnolia, who's a similarly kind of inept, struggling policeman, and that kind of whole scene with him is kind of a comedy sequence where he's trying to apprehend that drug. Drug
well, we
user.
even get the drunk as a viewpoint character.
Don't we? And then you get finally, eventually, halfway through the movie, the witch character comes in, brilliantly played by Amy Madigan. And she's a complete comic character, but in a kind of, she's sinister. But
I mean, the way did she remind you of Rosemary's Baby?
Yeah.
The scary old people in that.
But like a really over the top kind of caricature of that. You know the way the makeup is smeared on her face, the way she dresses like someone who hasn't thought about clothes for decades. She's a bonkers eccentric. Doesn't stop her being scary, and you're laughing with unease as soon as she comes in. But so I think the whole movie is kind of treading that line of being.
I agree, and I think it treads it perfectly right up until it doesn't, and then it. I really do think can you imagine if the ending was scary, and wasn't as directed for broad comedy, as if it was like, fuck, this is horrific. Like the end of Hereditary brings the movie back. I love that tableau at the end. I just wish the second half of the movie leading up to that hadn't made me go, she's flat, Toni Collette's flapping to the ceiling. Oh God, what's his name? Her husband.
Gabriel Byrne,
Gabriel Byrne looks like he wants to be somewhere else while things set on fire. It just, Anyway, but this
reminds me of when we were talking about Host years ago, and I had some kind of token criticisms of it, and I did say I found the ending a bit over the top, and you all made the point that the movie does go big when maybe it felt scary when it was small, but on the other hand, it going big gives it somewhere to go, and it was really impressive in that it was made in pandemic conditions. Obviously, this film's not like that, but I do think that escalating into humour is
it throws it away from me.
Well, wait a minute. Let me just finish that thought. Because it escalates into humour, it is actually darker than you would expect. So the kids screaming are all funny, but then they tear the witch to bits with their bare hands. I didn't think that was going to happen. I didn't think the movie was going to show us a load of kids killing an old lady. I thought cops were going to turn up at the last second and stop them. And then...
Start shooting the kids.
Well, possibly. But, and then you've got the resolution from that, which is that although the kids have killed the witch, they're not okay. The narrator says at the end, some of them even started to talk again this year. So however many years later it might be. You get the impression that of all the people who've been weaponized or taken over by the witch, the only ones who are okay are Josh Brolin, because it's only just happened to him. And maybe the cop guy. But like the kids' parents have gone for good, and all the children, it seems, have pretty much gone for good, and they're not dead. So it's a kind of really dark, concealed ending that, to be honest, I didn't even think about for a week after I saw it. A friend of mine pointed it out to me.
But it felt very abrupt for me that it was like, we've just done all this. I think they threw away all that thing they'd built up by going too comedic for me. I just think if they'd really gone, holy shit, this is like lots and lots of kids and it's scary as fuck, it would have been really intense, and then they'd ripped her apart and it'd been really horrible instead of funny. I think it would have been it would have just been a better film for my money. But one thing I was going to ask is, what do you think about the... Because obviously I don't mind horror, because we're on a horror podcast, but did you think this was... I think we might be seeing an era where people are deliberately getting 18s instead of 15s to big up their movie a bit.
Oh, right.
Because it was weird, because I had to go and see this, and I was like, oh, we'll go and see a horror film with my kids, and I've got so used to going, well, you know, we would go and watch 28 Years Later, which I don't think should be a 15. It's so borderline an 18, but they obviously did it to the second to get a 15 certificate. And I, you know, my son he's 16, but he really still can't get in to see 18s. And I was we went to go and see this, and he had to go and watch Formula One instead because he couldn't get in. And I was like, oh God, it's an 18, an actual movie that's an 18. But then I watched it and I was a bit like, they've done this on purpose. They've got that bit where Benedict Wong's headbutting people, and it never stops. And it's because you're allowed to do that for a little bit, but not for very long. And it felt, I don't know, there was something about getting the 18 that that was in the mix as well.
Although you just did make the point that 28 years later you felt should have been an 18, but is only a 15.
Yeah, because they pull away really quickly from everything. So I don't know. Anyway, it was just a minor thing, but it did make me go, the headbutting thing felt gratuitous. I don't mind however horrible things are if it doesn't feel like you're doing it for the wrong reason. And some of this felt a bit gratuitous.
It was certainly not really justified. There's nothing like that in the rest of the film.
No. So it was almost like, let's get an 18 and then we can like get the hype machine going and put the word disturbing on the poster. And every so often that works on a movie. Whereas Midsommar is a 18 for good reason. I didn't ever feel like he was doing it for the sake of it. He was doing it because that was the tone of the story. It was body horror and grimness and lots of mad things happening, lots of which were gory and involved people's bodies being cut up. But I mean, generally, I'll watch it again, and it generally worked on me. I do wonder how much I might enjoy it more now I know where it's going, and that's a horrible thing to say about a film, because I love to watch a film without being spoilt.
Dear listener, heads up, because here is where we're going to start comparing weapons to Barbarian. So here are some extracts from the trailer for Barbarian, and then we're going to go into the discussion. So be warned, there are spoilers for the movie from the first second. So if you haven't seen it, last chance to go watch it.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
This is 476 Barbary, right?
Yeah, I'm renting this place.
No, I booked it a month ago.
Are you sure you have the right place?
Yeah. What am I supposed to do?
Why don't you come inside and we'll call these idiots. Why don't you just crash here?
Oh, no.
I don't know if you got a great look at this neighborhood, but I don't think you should be out there by yourself. It's dry and there's a lock on the door. By the way, I'm Keith.
Tess.
You take the bedroom and I'll sleep out here on the couch.
Keith?
This process might seem overwhelming, but with a little practice, it can soon become a pleasurable experience. This is perfectly natural.
But having just watched Barbarian, and I knew, because from you and from lots of other people, that it's got a tonal shift, which had alienated a lot of people. So when it does happen at minute 42,
Is it that far in? Right. Well, I thought it was about minute 20.
Yeah, it's minute 4. Well, it's minute 42 where
Right.
where you see the albino woman from Descent.
Yes, that was one of the things that I found really disappointing, actually.
What that it was? That's what it was.
Yeah, because I thought it's just, you have a concept where it's like we don't know what's in this Airbnb house, and we don't know if the guy in it is, is sinister or just socially awkward. And the first half an hour of the film is like a masterpiece of sort of socially awkward drama meets horror. You just don't know where it's going. But then as soon as they go into the tunnels underneath the house, and it is bone-chillingly tense. But then as soon as she appears, it's like, oh, it's just the Descent. But then it cuts to a week later or something, we meet other characters. So the film doesn't continue in that direction. But it becomes what I found disappointing, and just felt like the film deflated, was that all these disparate elements would just seem to be just kind of crammed together a bit in the second half.
No. I think that's a fair criticism. It's got it again. I guess it's probably on a par with Weapons. I just think Weapons is more ambitious and therefore took a bigger swing, which probably makes Weapons the better film because it's trying to do something much more complicated and almost succeeds. And Barbarian is basically a simple. There's a monster under this, and then it does it in quite a fancy way, which is also very good. And I was there going, are the themes of this film intact? Because it's it is all about he's obviously a wrong-un, but he can't be a wrong-un. Surely he's not a wrong-un because that would be too obvious that he's a wrong-un. Oh, he is a wrong-un. No, he's not a wrong-un. But then you're right. It was a really good, like, fuck me, what is that thing? But then it's inbred, you keep, what's the line in it? You keep copying a copy and you end up with that.
Yeah.
And I was like, how does that chime in with the fact that we've got the sort of gender politics in the first bit, and then we've also got the other person they choose to bring into it is a man accused of rape.
Yeah.
Who then chucks her off the roof and then gets... So it does... You're right, it probably does kind of fall apart. It's just because it was also just a monster movie and wasn't as long and didn't love itself quite as much, that it's a lot more, oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
And it looks really good and it's creepy, and for most of the film I was quite tense.
Okay.
But it was 90 minutes, and you can kind of forgive a lot in 90 minutes because it's like, it's 90 minutes. I'm after it. It's a monster movie, whereas 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
You want this thing thinks it's an epic and it's got things to say. I'm not entirely sure it does if it's just going to have a comedy Monty Python ending.
Yeah.
At the end.
Although I think that, again, because I feel like the comedy was sort of threaded through it, certainly more in... Well, I think it was more than Barbarian did. I might have to rewatch Barbarian and see if there actually is much more humour in the start of it, which I didn't think... I thought...
Well, I think there's bits of humour in Barbarian, but it never steps into a different film.
The first part of it has got like social comedy, hasn't it? It's awkward, awkwardness comedy.
And it has a brilliant bit where she opens one of the million. I mean, there are so many like spooky doors that they open in that film, but there is a bit where she looks into it and goes, "Nope."
Right. Yeah.
Which is just like, but yeah, I mean, if you had a criticism, it's kind of half the fun of horror films. But you are there going, walking into one cellar. It's kind of like that. Okay, that's a horror movie trope, and you're going, I wouldn't be walking into a cellar. She walks into places I would not go anywhere near.
Yeah.
And there is also the slight bit. This might be the thing with this director. He might have a slight. Maybe needs his script slightly looking at, because I wasn't clear when she left the Airbnb. I was not at all clear why she had to go back to it. Why was she still in town after a job interview? So there were things like that going on in it, which bothers me because, God, you could just interrogate your bloody script and just communicate that to the audience so we know what's going on. So, but generally, both films, really, really interesting director.
Yeah, and he's a comedian and a musician and all these things. His contribution to, well, I don't know exactly what his contribution to the musical score on Weapons was, because there are several composers, but I think it's a really interesting soundtrack, really effective. So he's kind of firing on all cylinders, I think. Well, that's what I think now. After I saw Barbarian, I thought, this guy doesn't know how to make a movie at all.
When it's on Netflix at the moment, which is why I thought I've really got to get around to watching this.
Yes.
And for all the flaws of both films, he absolutely, totally knows how to write dialogue and character.
That's true.
And direct performances, and most important for this podcast, really, really chill you and make you go, there's gonna be something's gonna happen, I'm scared, when's it gonna happen? And he always does it just right, which is interesting because he's a comedian, so he's good at landing the laugh, and he's good at landing the scares. Yeah,
the timing is really good. I just feel like it was off in Barbarian because he perfectly paced the opening half of the film. It's like it drew out the tension as far as it could possibly go. It turned the screws, and it was it was just kind of spellbinding and skin crawling. But it's almost as if he did that as far as he could, and then he realised, I've still got 45 minutes to go here, and it's too long to be a short film now, so I've got to pad it out with something. So the second half of the movie just goes really random, I think.
It does, and it's weird because I knew that was happening. I didn't know exactly how, but when it got there, I was like, whoa, that was good. And then I was just ready for whatever came next because I knew there was a tonal shift. It's interesting. You start getting into straying away from the area of art and into the area of managing audience expectations through marketing. And it's like, is that an art in itself?
Yeah.
Or do you just go, some films throw you a curveball and you have to go with it? I mean, talking to Josh Brolin, I'm always talking about this when I'm teaching students.
Oh, No Country for Old Men.
No Country for Old Men. Again, spoilers for it. Like, la, 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 Mary Had a Little Lamb in your ears. If for
an 18-year-old movie, but yeah. I saw that for the first time last year, and I was prepared for it, because I remember you saying that something happens just towards the end, which is so left field.
That breaks the rules, yeah.
I think you said you had people walking out of the cinema.
Yeah, I was in Newcastle at the time, and people were swearing and storming out and just going, fuck this, man. Like, they were furious.
I did find it very strange.
I always mention it to my students because it's like, if you're going to break the rules, you've got to know what the audience is going to do. They don't study story, they just feel it in their bones. And I think it's genius, but at the same time, it's bloody bold.
Okay.
But yeah, talking of Josh Brolin, but yeah,
I just felt like the movie that you thought you were building up to the climax of it was just suddenly over, and a whole new movie started off, which I was prepared to go with, a movie about Tommy Lee Jones, and then after 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it just ends.
Yeah. But I mean, I think generally because he's there at the beginning, I think it's to show, everyone is just a headline in a newspaper and you get killed off screen, and also it's Tommy Lee Jones's story because it's him at the beginning and him at the end. So, and it's called No Country for Old Men. So it's that's the sort of argument, but I think it works on so many levels because we might think we're heroes in movies, and maybe that's why some people feel immortal. They feel like, well, this is going to happen to me because I'm the main star,
right?
And then actually we're all an obituary and nobody's heard of us,
right?
we're all at best a little minor footnote.
Beautifully
in the
bleak philosophy.
Grand scheme of things. Pardon?
Beautifully bleak philosophy.
It's. But I think that's kind of what it's saying. He's just a two-bit crook, and there's millions of them. But anyway, back to these movies. I just think I think a bit like Ari Aster. I think I'm going to watch everything he makes, whether I like it or not. And just like Robert Eggers, because even Robert Eggers' failures, of which I'd say Nosferatu was one, are really interesting to look at and really interesting to see. And The Witch is one of my favourite films ever, and I really love Midsommar. If I'd gone on how I reacted to Hereditary, I wouldn't have gone to see that. And based on both of these, Cregger's is, although his name's too similar, he needs a new name.
Too similar to Robert Eggers, yeah.
Yeah, and the same with Mr. Longlegs. He's Oz Perkins.
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned Longlegs actually, but this was one of the first things that popped in my head was that just having the crazy, funny, but creepy sort of bad person at the centre. We've got a witch in this one, and we've got Nick Cage as a transvestite serial killer in Longlegs.
Well, I haven't actually seen Longlegs,
Oh,
or indeed
I won't
any Oz
spoil it then.
Perkins film. I still haven't seen anything he's done ever.
Really go and see The Black Coat's Daughter, because it's absolutely brilliant. He's basically one of those directors that I really like, but I can see why I'm always a bit reticent to recommend his films, because loads of people go, you said to watch that film and it was so boring. So now I don't recommend his films.
Right.
Because I think he's... Like, there's one called I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House.
Yeah, that's on Netflix.
That's glacial.
Right.
But I found it scary. But everyone I know else who's watched it has just gone, I fell asleep.
Right.
That was too slow. I thought it was terrifying. But in a ghost story kind of way.
Yeah.
It's really slow and it's hypnotic. But again, I will watch everything he does, because they're never boring. They're never just normal Hollywood. But having moaned that I want things to be completely work script-wise, I think, and I don't think that's a contradiction, because I want them to be left field and wacky and disturbing, and I also want them to not have massive plot holes.
And it is possible.
Because I think they'll make that tone. I think that'll make that tone better.
Yeah, no, I agree. With regard to Ari Aster, I haven't actually seen any film he's made since Midsommar, and I think it's probably because I don't think he's made any more horror films, has he? His new one's not a horror film. So
I don't think so, no.
So, I didn't...
say I'll go and see everything he makes. I haven't seen anything he's done since Midsommar.
And I didn't really like The Witch, so I've never seen anything...
Did you not?
I have complex feelings on it. I refer the listener to Kirsty and Stella and I talking about it in one of our paganism episodes. It's impressive, but the one I'd really like to see actually that I haven't seen is The Lighthouse.
I haven't seen that. That gets very mixed reception from people. So many films, Dan. There's so many films.
So many. I mean, there's 3 versions of Nosferatu, and I've only seen 1.5 of them. I couldn't even get through the Werner Herzog version.
Mike, I've just had a quick Google. How many films would you say Ari Aster has directed?
I would think it's 5.
It's 11.
How many of those were before Hereditary?
I don't know. All 11 Ari Aster movies ranked from worst to best.
Right.
He's only 36. So 2011, TDF.
Right.
Really works, whatever that is. Basically, 2014. The Turtle's Head, 2014.
Right.
Is that the Turtle's Head?
A reference to needing to toilet.
I don't know.
Right. Okay. And when was...
No, I don't think he's read Visus Profanosaurus. I think the Turtle's Head seems to be some sort of Maltese falcon.
Right. Oh dear.
Then a thing called Beau in 2011. Then C'est la Vie 2016. We're going to have to do a section on Ari Aster.
So all those movies are before Hereditary then.
And then 2008. The Strange Thing About the Johnsons 2011. Munchausen. I think Hereditary was his breakthrough because Beau is Afraid is his latest, which I've not seen. And then Midsommar, and then they've put obviously Hereditary number 1 because they're idiots. Right. It should be Midsommar at number 1. But so basically, I remember with Ari Aster reading that he did all these sort of human relationship movies and no one watched them.
Right.
So he turned one storyline and added a demon to it for Hereditary, and that was a household name. So there you go. The power of genre.
Yeah.
The power of genre.
I mean, Midsommar is a breakup relationship movie turned into a horror movie, isn't it? Again, that's...
Yeah.
So
I mean, it also almost should not work because it's like, it's so shallow what it's about.
Right.
But it's just, it really is. Oh God, it's a bunch of people, all they've got to worry about is their relationships.
Yeah.
But it's also just hilarious. So I think it gets away with that. Whereas Hereditary takes itself too seriously for my money. So I don't know. It's a strange thing, but we should watch Beau is Afraid. Anyway, slightly off topic.
I love Midsommar, and I think it's very funny. I think we're on the same page with that. Mm-hmm. It's a comedy horror film that kind of that does have some legitimately horrifying moments, but a lot of it is.
Yeah. Well, the end of Midsommar. This is a spoiler for Midsommar, so turn off now. But that bit with him and the bear and everyone being burnt alive at the end is the tone that Weapons didn't get and Weapons could have done with, which is that was the tone that would have suited the end of Weapons. Like, it was still fuck me funny, but I was still in with the horror of it. I was still, this film's got balls, well done. And whereas Weapons was just, okay, you've got a bunch of kids screaming and someone being torn apart. I'm done with this movie, I'm sorry.
And I do suspect that part of the reason I enjoyed Weapons so much is because I didn't know where it was going. And I think we might have the opposite impulse now. You're thinking you might watch it again because knowing where it is going may allow you to see more positive qualities in it. Whereas I think
does occasionally happen.
I think
it
does.
Some,
but I think that the idea of watching it but knowing where it's going makes it less appealing to me.
Yeah. But it's almost like if I'd been told it's got tonal shifts and you've got to go with them, like I had with Barbarian, might have, I don't know, maybe prepped me more. But still, I just think the ending, I was on board with it pretty much the whole film. It's just the ending especially was just the wrong tone for me to end a gripping film on.
No, fair enough. I mean,
my final word.
I feel like I might just rewatch the ending, just the last 10 minutes, just to see, just have another.
But I think if I watch the last 10 minutes, it's watching it as the whole movie and then kind of getting to the end and going, it's like you just went and
yeah,
like it was all a dream. I don't know how to finish this.
Yeah, which
like, you need to do this, but film it differently.
Suggests that you might be right about saying that his initial intention was vetoed by someone, because therefore he couldn't do what he wanted to do in the first place, and he had to kind of throw together an ending and just went fuck it. Yeah. And he's a comedian, so he went for broad laughs.
Yeah. And yeah. I think there's it's still a good film, but I think there's a much better film if you sort out the plot things. You know, if you made I think the kid doesn't really have a character now.
No.
And whereas if he'd been a little shit that she thinks she's manipulating, and it turns out he then takes over the family business and has her ripped apart by the Weapons, that would be much more chilling. In fact, there you go. That's a much better film.
That's a good rewrite. That I like that straight away. Yeah.
If only I was there.
Indeed.
But yeah,
we can often say that in. Oh well. On that note, then, dear listener, thank you very much. That's our thoughts on the movies of Zach Cregger, not Creggers, as I have occasionally called him. He's not, doesn't rhyme that closely to Robert Eggers. He's Zach Cregger.
And that makes me think of Cregger's Plays Pop. No. I'm much older than you, so you might not know what I'm talking about.
I think it's Chegger's Plays Pop, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Chegger's Plays Pop.
So, yeah.
No, Keith Chegwin. There's a horror trope.
I vaguely remember that from my childhood, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. On that note, let's wind things up. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hope you're enjoying your October. It only remains for me to say then a little heads up to the bonus episode for this week and a throw forward to the next episode of our podcast. So this week's bonus episode from the archives of the wonderful podcast A Very British Horror focuses on the Richard E. Grant, Julian Sands action horror movie Warlock from 1988. There's a movie this I've never seen, but I should probably get around to it. Hope you enjoy the episode. And in the next episode of And Now the Podcast Starts, we welcome back Howard and we welcome back Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee as Howard and I discuss The House That Dripped Blood from 1971. Hope you'll join us for that one. In the meantime, thank you, Ian.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, dear listener, and until next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
You have been listening to And Now the Podcast Starts, an Ambisol podcast, presented by Ian Winterton and T.D. Velasquez. Special thanks to Greg Hume for our original theme music. Our original artwork is by Kirsty Warrow. Please search One Crow Left on Instagram, Etsy, or Redbubble to see and purchase more of Kirsty's work. All clips from films, TV shows, trailers, and musical works are used for the purposes of criticism in the spirit of fair use as defined in the US law and fair dealing as defined in the laws of Commonwealth nations. No copyright infringement is intended. Please visit our home on the web, andnowpodcast.com, for more content and contact details. You can follow us on Mastodon, Blue Sky, and even Twitter, which we refuse to call X, it's an insult, X the unknown. Our handle for each is @AndNowPodcast. We're also on Facebook as @AndNowPod. And finally, Threads and Instagram as _podcast_starts. Sorry about that. If you'd like to donate to help us with the costs of making the podcast, please visit patreon.com/andnowpodcast. Donors get early access to upcoming content and other exclusives. This podcast was produced and released by Ambidextrous Solutions Limited. And now the podcast stops.